Welcome to Sow Chatty. I'm Kerry from Dog on the Plot.
And I'm Claire from the Farmyard Garden.
Hello, Claire. How are you?
I'm okay, Kerry. What about you?
I'm all right. I've realised as we've come on air that I'm not accountable for what I promised to do at the end of last week's episode, which was plant the garlic. Still not done it. Couldn't do it. Couldn't do it, even if I wanted to this week because of all the rain that we've had. We've had hard frosts in the UK this week. Some people have had snow. Did you have
Yes,
snow, Claire?
I did not. We had a frost, though. We did get down to minus
Oh,
6.3.
wow.
Only in the
Oh.
polytunnel. It always seems colder in the polytunnel. I don't quite
My
understand how that
polytunnel is
works.
colder. I think it was -2.5 in the home greenhouse. But talking of the polytunnel, that was your accountable thing. Did you clear your polytunnel?
I did.
I know you did. I watched your video. I saw you do it. You cleaned it as well, which I was very impressed by.
I mean, I haven't cleaned the entirety of it, but it was unbelievable just how much stuff was stuck on that side where all the birdhouse gourds had been. And obviously the loofahs were touching the plastic as well. It does need a clean, to be fair, but it's more on the outside than the inside, generally speaking. But yeah,
Will you do that before winter, or will you just wait till the spring to do the outside now?
Oh, well, I waited last year until January time. What was it? Something like -2, and it was absolutely freezing, and I was frozen doing it. But I will get round to it. Not sure when. Sooner rather than later would be better, to be fair. But yeah, it needs doing, but it's fine. I mean, I don't do it in summer, so I don't clean the polytunnel in preparation for the summer growing season because things get too hot. There's too much light anyway. So to me, it's more important to do it now and to get that extra light that we can in there at the moment. But no, I have done it.
That was my excuse.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never cleaned mine yet. And when I was editing my video from last week and you could see the dirt on it, and I was like, oh gosh, this is quite embarrassing. But I'm a bit tentative about cleaning the outside of my polytunnel because it is one of these green flimsy material ones. It flakes. And I don't want all those microplastics going into the soil. So I'm I'm not quite sure how to do it. I'd be interested if anyone in the comments or in the live chat has cleaned the outside of one of these and if there's a way to do it to prevent that shedding.
Do you know what? I'd be more inclined to just buy a new cover for it and just change the cover because they're not overly expensive, but they're not expensive really, are they? So if you're worried about the plastics, then you could actually buy the new cover, and because you'd still be able to cut it and pin it around your door, because I bet is the door okay that's on the wooden frame, that side?
That's fine.
So yeah, you could just put a new cover on. I don't think they're that expensive, Kerry.
It's the doing of it though. It looks like a difficult job to me. Just taking that cover off. It's dug down quite deep as well, that cover.
Oh yeah.
Though I guess you could just kind of slice it at the bottom, although that doesn't help with the leaving of the plastic in the soils. But
no.
I know, Claire, that sorting that polytunnel is high on your list for me. It's kind of lower on my list, I think. Perhaps first I should finish glazing all my greenhouses and then
that seemed to be a popular suggestion in the comments,
didn't it? It did. So is that your hot for this week, that you got your polytunnel cleared and planted up for the winter?
I think so, yeah. It's nice to see it. And actually, not only is it hot because it looks good, I was gobsmacked, absolutely, how hot it was in there this week. So it was 2 degrees outside. The frost had still not thawed on the garden. And I walked into the polytunnel and this heat in the sun just hit me. And I'd forgotten what a joyous space being in a polytunnel is over winter, because it was 19.5 degrees in there at the time. It rose to 21 degrees while I was in there. And it was like being in a late spring, early summer day in the polytunnel, yet it was 2 degrees outside. As soon as you walked out there, it was freezing. So yeah, I'd forgotten that. That's what I love the polytunnel for in winter, and that's why I've got the seat in there. It's just a nice space to be, really.
It's that thing, though, of those really fluctuating temperatures when it can go down to -6 at night, but then up to like 20 degrees in the day. Some plants don't mind that. I mean, you've got brassicas in there and things. They'll be fine with that. But you do have to be careful, especially early in the season, don't you, when you're putting things out and you've got those big fluctuations, like with the tomatoes and peppers and aubergines and things like that. They can be less forgiving of those big fluctuations, can't they? And you got your trees into the polytunnel, Claire.
I
with
did.
some manoeuvring.
That was hard work, that was. I had not expected them to, one, get through the double membrane that was in the bottom of those planters. And also, one of the planters, the peach tree one in particular, the bottom of it had just rotted completely. And that shocked me in how short a space of time that they've been in there. And I know they were sitting on the soil, but that's what they're designed to do, is sit outside somewhere, isn't it? And so obviously we then took the bottom off the other one. I had wanted to dig holes and plant them directly in the ground, but I very quickly realized that they'd put on so much roots. When you think how spindly the roots were when we had those as bare root plants early in the season, the amount of roots they'd put down, I could not dig a hole that big in my polytunnel. And I was also then worried that they would be sitting well in the water table, especially because water comes off my polytunnel because I don't have any water capture on it. So I felt that they were better left in those planters. And if they rot completely in the next couple of years, I have had an idea that maybe carefully I can build a metal one, the little
I was
the
thinking the
beds.
metal one.
You could build those around and then infill with some compost.
They have those little round ones. That would look pretty, wouldn't it? Yeah. No, I did think, but they look really nice in the wooden planters in the polytunnel as well. When you had that shot kind of looking down the polytunnel on their either side, it really does look very nice.
I liked it. So I'm very pleased with that. And I mean, and that's inspired by you really, because yours are in the greenhouse, aren't they?
Can't see how my roots are doing on mine. Hopefully they've doing established well, especially the peach, the bonfire crimson peach, because I thought that was dead. It had a very little spindly root on because these were bare root trees, weren't they, Claire? And I put it in the ground and nothing happened. It had no buds on it. It just looked like a dead stick in the ground. But I'm glad I persevered because it burst into life late in the season. I haven't had blossom, you see. I've not experienced blossom on that tree yet. But you got blossom, gorgeous. Didn't you? And it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So beautiful.
What I don't know what to do with now is how soon do I fleece them? Because obviously it is cooler in the polytunnel overnight than it is in the greenhouse.
Well, I thought I should probably finish glazing the greenhouse. And that would help keep my ones warm and put the door on that greenhouse. So I think of all the greenhouses that I have to repair glass in, I should start with the one on the plot because that's got the trees in. And the one in the home garden, which has had panes missing for years and years, I know the stuff in there survives the winter because that's what I did. I brought my tender plants into the greenhouse before we got the frosts. And you know what I've still not done, Claire? This can be my not, because it's just occurred to me. I mentioned to you the other day, didn't I? I thought I was fully prepared for those frosts, that I'd got everything in, everything that needed to be done. And then I think it was like 9 o'clock at night or something. I just suddenly thought, my lemon tree. I'd left my lemon tree outside. And because it was kind of shoved in with where the berries are, because that was the most sunlight in the garden, I'd been neglected it all summer. It's still alive. But it'd been out with 2 frosts.
Oh no.
I've checked it. It looks alive for now, but I've still left it out there, Claire. I still didn't move it. So that's definitely, remember that for the end of the episode. That's got to be my accountable for next week. Move my lemon tree into the lean-to so it's protected over winter.
My knots are very similar, really. I mean, and it'll be in this weekend's video that I have things that I also did not even think about bringing in. And in my defense, and I do say this in the video because I was recording yesterday, that we weren't forecast for it to go that cold. We were forecast for it to be sort of -1, -2. And I thought that, well, we've had that before in a surprise frost and the things had coped with that. But there's things in the garden that I just didn't even think about bringing in. And I don't know whether they're ruined now. Well, some of them are definitely ruined. They're complete mush, but I'm in a similar situation with you, with that.
We were talking about some of those sorts of things like the salvias and things, because it's the roots really that you want to be protecting, because the top growth is going to die back anyway. So let's keep our fingers crossed, Claire. The roots are still okay, because it was just a short cold snap, a couple of nights, and we've warmed up slightly again now, haven't we? Well, my hot, because I guess my not is the lemon tree, but also that everything on the allotment has now collapsed under that frost, and it all, like, this is especially for Jimmy, in the comments or in the live who's been repeatedly talking about my plot looking such a mess. Well, it really, really does look like a mess now. I agree. All the cosmos, the nasturtiums, everything has been knocked back. And yes, it's a big slimy mess that I have not done anything about because, of course, we've had all this rain and that's not the ideal time to be going in and clearing all that stuff. But the flip to that is that my hot is that I did get most of the things off the plot that I needed to before the frost hit. So I had such a glorious final harvest of the plot, or the final of the summer crops. So loads of pumpkins, obviously the gourds. I got, what else did I do? Did the beans, just about got those because, yeah, you were the same, weren't you, picking your beans? It was a bit, have we left it too long? And I've got them drying on a plate, so we'll see how they go. But yeah, cabbages, lettuces, some potatoes, some things not so great, like the sweet potatoes, didn't get those. But yeah, I was really pleased. And last night I did a pot of, we were making a curry and I did a pot of veg that I was just kind of getting ready for the curry, and everything in that pot was my produce. The aubergines, I had tromboncino, peppers, leek, garlic, tomatoes. Did I already say that? I'm trying to think of all the things that I put in. But it was such a glorious big pot of lovely colours and all my own produce. And it felt so amazing, especially at this point as we're nearing the end of November.
Yeah. To be picking aubergines in November.
I know.
Unbelievable. Mine were finished a long time ago, but then they did start fruiting a lot earlier than yours.
Yeah.
But it's just such a joyous thing. And I think I feel heartwarmed for you because, you've had a really tough season last year. So to be able to enjoy this season and the abundance that new plot has given you this year, it just feels well deserved. And I'm pleased for you, Kerry. Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, it feels night and day, the old plot and the new plot, and it has. Yeah, it's been really rewarding this season, which I couldn't have said last season. There were a lot of disappointments last season. So yeah, but I think most of us have had a good season this year, despite the dry weather, or in some cases because of the dry weather. Obviously, things like tomatoes and aubergines and peppers have done really well in it.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. Well, I think we've already mentioned a couple of things that are going to appear for this show and tell. So do you want to go first, Claire?
Well, I might as well. They're sitting here next to me. Now, lots of us have been trying to grow sweet potatoes from the slips that I did, haven't we? Trying being the operative word. And we've had very limited success, haven't we? In fact, most of us have had nothing but roots. But I did manage to get a couple. And I think this is my biggest one. It's very, very curly. And then I have this one here as well, another little one. So they're not the biggest, but they're definitely sweet potatoes. And I'm actually wondering if I started my sweet potatoes off too soon, Kerry, because if you saw me harvesting this one, I was pulling them apart. They were curled together in a stack. Yeah. I'm wondering if they were pot bound before they went out. And even though they didn't look like obvious sweet potato tubers to be, whether they didn't look pot bound, but whether inside, right around the stem, I think they were curled up too tight.
Interesting. I don't think I am going to try again.
Aren't you? You will. I'll be giving you some slips next year.
Can you show us the purple flesh? Would you break one in half?
I can for you. I'll break this little stem of one, sticky one, in half. There you go.
Oh, look at that. That's amazing. Look at that.
It is gorgeous, isn't it?
Oh, that's what I wanted, Claire. That's what I wanted.
Me too. I mean, this is already a sweet potato fry all on its own. And that's what I grew. Cut out the middleman and just grew some sweet potato fries. I mean, most of them are kind of just like this, really. But, there's hope there, isn't there?
Something.
Yeah, definitely got something. And I'd like to try 2 varieties next year, some orange flesh and the purple flesh. But I would like to buy some buy some slips in, just in case. I'm blaming me for all of us to have had no success. That everyone had the slips from me. So I do feel like it's something I did, whether I started them off too soon and they were a bit stressed.
Okay, well, my show and tell. I'm so excited about this. Oh, hang on. Gotta Gotta get the muscles going. Here it comes. Oh, it doesn't
Wow.
even fit on the screen. I'm going to have to shimmy back a little bit. There we go.
Look at that.
Look at that bad boy. My
That
goodness.
is amazing.
You know, when I was watching your video and you were harvesting yours, and I was like, oh, I think mine's bigger. Oh, I think mine's bigger. I've got to get something over on you, Claire. But of course, I got one of this size. And did you have like 6 or 7 really
Something
good
like that.
sized ones?
And I'd already harvested the outdoor ones,
The
which
outdoor
were
ones,
smaller.
yeah.
I mean, for that to be an outdoor one, it's enormous. My sisters are big as well. You know, none of my outdoor ones grew to that kind of size. So, you know, well done. Does it feel...
Well, I mean, theoretically, it's still yours because this was
but it's not.
the
You
plant
grew
that
it.
you gave me.
Does it feel heavy or has it? Does it feel hollow?
It does feel heavy, but then I was thinking, does it feel as heavy as it should for the size that it is? And then you were knocking them, weren't you? I haven't knocked this.
Yeah.
This is the first knock of the
Okay.
birdhouse gourd. Here we go, by the mic.
Oh, I don't know. I think it's getting there, isn't it? What I'll do is
I'm optimistic.
Yeah, I think that they will cure, but you know, when it says 6 to 12 months, I'm guessing those that haven't started the process on the vine are going to just obviously take longer. And what I will actually do is, and I'll pop it up over on the screen, I'll weigh 2 of mine next to each other, one that feels hollow and one that doesn't, just to see the difference in the weight of them, because I haven't done that yet, so I can't give you that information beforehand. But yeah, I'm hopeful that we will all end up with some enormous birdhouses for the birds. And, you know, to be honest, I'm wondering if they're too big for birds. Do birds want a space that big? I'm actually a bit worried.
But it will look
fantastic
hanging from the tree. That's important. And you can decorate them and things like that as well, can't you? And obviously I've got the long dipper gourd as well. Now I was going to bring that as well to do a double show and tell, but even just because I'm at Liam's, bringing that in the car. And when I came in last night, he was like, what on earth is that? And why have you brought it to my house? And I was like, I grew it. And he didn't believe me. He was very impressed that I had grown that. Less impressed that it's ended up at his house.
I'm so pleased that we did them. And, you know, again, thanks must go out to Pammy from Garden of Weedon, because she suggested growing them this year. She put the entirety of the thing on my radar, and I have obviously given that sort of influence or inspiration, should I say, to other people as well. And so thank you, Pammy, because we've all of us that have grown them, we've all had fun. And even those that haven't grown them, they've had fun watching along, haven't they, with how they've done.
I've got some smaller ones that like would be little maracas.
Yeah.
Because you know the long dipper gourd you can make into a musical instrument, but I thought actually the little birdhouse gourds you could make as maracas. I think somebody mentioned that in my comments this week actually as well. So I thought that would be fun.
Do you know what else they'd make? If you had a series of them that were different sizes, you could make the Russian dolls out of them, couldn't you?
You could, couldn't you? Or just use the bottom half and make little bowls. You know how you have the coconut bowls? I love coconut bowls. You could do that with them. Oh,
so many
We're going to have lots of fun still to come, Claire.
We are.
Any daft things this week?
I don't think I've done much daft really, apart from trying to get that peach tree out of the greenhouse door. Poor Emily. She was roped into that one. I didn't think it was going to be that heavy either. I don't know why I didn't think it was going to be that heavy, but it was. But no, that's about it really. The weather has not been that good. I don't think I've had that much opportunity to do daft things, to be fair.
We've been complaining a bit, haven't we, that it's been hard to film because it's just been so rainy and cold. And there's nothing worse than trying to go out and doing some gardening and everything's soggy, because you're not doing the garden any favours really, are you? Because you're compacting and things, which we'll talk about in a minute. Well, I have a daft thing because it's me. There's always a daft thing. And if people watch my video for this week, you will see that I used a mini chainsaw for the very first time. And it's an inaugural cut, and Mark made me go first. I was like, Mark, you do this. And he's like, no. It's your mini chainsaw. You have to go first. So I did a little tester on a little branch and cut that. And then I did a bigger trunk and nearly knocked Mark out, knocked my phone over on his tripod. And that was me done. I was like, yep, I'm done. There were some comments in my video about learning technique, and I definitely think there's some techniques that I need to be learning.
I thought it was quite funny when I was watching it. It made me smile because Mark was instructing you that where you were going to cut it, he said, if you cut it there, it's going to fall on you. I heard him tell you that.
Yes.
And so you went around the other side, well, then you cut it on the side facing your phone and him. But at no point did Mark say, hang on a minute, that's now going to hit me. You know, he was worried about your safety, but not his own. I did smile.
I think it switched into cameraman mode, and so he was focused on the shot and not where the tree was going to fall. But everything else was safely done. Oh, and it was funny though. My sister watched the video, and then she got in touch to say, "You pair cut down all the trees that I wasn't fussed about, and the one tree that she wanted cutting down, we left."
No.
So yeah, we made a bit of a mistake there. I think we assumed we knew what she wanted on her plot. But I said, well, you weren't down there to give instruction or help. So,
oh no.
So she suffered because of it. No, I think the tree that she does want down, which is the one that's over there, like mini pond, we will reduce that one as well. We haven't even started on the trees on my side of the plot, the damson trees on there.
So you're not out of damsons then? You haven't taken them all out yet?
No. And I've got the green gage tree there as well. And Mark's planted some new plum trees in a better spot on his plot as well. So yeah, any trees that are coming out, we've been replacing with other trees. And we do want to keep some of the damson. But that area at the back that we were clearing, which has the like half fallen down sheds in and things, we can't move those at the minute because they need to be checked for asbestos. So we've got somebody coming onto the site to check all the old structures that are on the site just to make sure they're safe to remove. And if not, remove them safely. But once that's cleared, it's actually like quite a big space at the back of my sister's plot there that you can then use. And we're thinking perhaps of putting some more sheds and things on there. But the damson trees would have to go in order to accommodate that. Bargains then. Bargains for this week. Have you been out spending?
I haven't been anywhere. The only thing that I have bought is this little pop-up Christmas tree. And I realise it doesn't have many lights on it or decorations. These came on it. So I haven't done anything else to it. This is how it comes out of the box. Well, when you've built the thing up inside it. But I thought that this would be a little Christmas tree for Sow Chatty. So it's the Sow Chatty festivities.
Is it specifically for us? You wouldn't normally have a tree in your garden room?
No, I wouldn't. No. So it is specifically
we feel very
for us.
Honoured.
Well, from next week, it'll be Christmas jumpers. I implore you to find your Christmas Fair Isle jumpers out for next week.
We are going to wear Christmas jumpers throughout December, aren't we?
We are.
And we're going to do Christmas mugs. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel a bit of a turncoat because the Sow Chatty mug will become a Christmas mug. And I'm debating, do I just draw with chalk pen?
I was just thinking that.
A Santa hat on my...
Santa hat. We could we do the design with a Santa hat?
Kerry.
Claire's had enough of me. When we started looking at this merch, I was like, I think we should have a really select few items, Claire. Let's not go over the top. We'll do the mugs, we'll do the hats, maybe a t-shirt. And then I look on there and Claire's got every single thing you can imagine is on there. And I'm like, Claire, I don't know. And then I changed my mind. I was like, no, some people want short sleeve and some people want long sleeve and some people want different kinds of fittings. And then I got really carried away and I was like, can we do dog jumpers, Claire? Can we do aprons? I want a gilet. I want my entire wardrobe to be so chatty.
It's like a uniform. Every time you sent me something else, I just replied, I thought we weren't going overboard with merch. No, not going overboard at all, are we, Kerry? So yeah, you'd like a gilet next, wouldn't you? And we have had some requests, actually. I think someone has asked if we can do beanies. They don't want an actual bobble hat. They want a beanie hat. So they do a beanie. So I need to look into doing that. Obviously, anything that's embroidered, I have to pay a setup cost for the embroidery to go on the new item. So I'd have to buy, and that means I have to buy one then as well. So I'll have to buy a beanie. So
Duncan could have a beanie, couldn't he?
He won't wear a hat.
No?
No,
not
he won't wear a hat.
Though.
No, definitely not. I don't think he would. But yeah, we can definitely look into other things. And we actually, I mean, I haven't looked for a few days, but the last time I looked, we'd had 13 items ordered and a selection of
yeah.
items, and even something that was paid for by euros. I don't know who's made the orders, just in case anyone's worried about I'm getting any personal details. I'm not. But in our marketplace section on T-shirt Studio, it does just tell me the orders that have been placed. It's lovely to see that other people are purchasing, and I've had a couple of dispatch notices, so some people are already on their way to receiving items that they've bought.
Excellent.
So hopefully you're watching this with your Sow Chatty mug if
and
it's
we did
one
say,
of you.
didn't we, that if people, when they get their merch, if they could put a picture up onto the community page, we would love to see our logo out in the wild. It would be absolutely fantastic.
And I'd like to go one step further than that, actually, Kerry, if you don't mind.
Okay,
yes.
We haven't discussed this. Go
no,
on.
We haven't. No, I'm sorry. I think I may have mentioned it, but it was glossed over. That if you're purchasing from a computer, so not a phone, there's a very different screen for the Sow Chatty shop, because the picture that I've put on there, which is us from the thumbnail last week, doesn't transfer to the mobile version of it. It kind of cuts us off. So it's only if you're looking on a desktop version. But it inspired me to think that if any of you watching would be willing to have your photo wearing the merch in the shop section, then I'd quite like to do that, actually, have us modelling them for the shops. Yeah. Or even just a gallery. If you want us to have, if you'd like to send the pictures of us with your hat on in your garden, then we will add a gallery section to the website as well.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. So either or, but if you're willing to have you in a hat on the website, then you're going to have to email that to hello@sowchatty.co.uk so that we get a high resolution image to add to our shop on there. So yeah, that's it. That's the end of merch chat.
Well, that leads us quite well on to our giveaway, because part of our giveaway this week or last week was to put a community post up for an extra entry. We had so many. How many community posts? 50 community posts. 50. That is amazing. Yeah. And we've really enjoyed seeing some of your pictures, and we'll perhaps pop some of our favourites on the screen as we're chatting now. And in total, we had 165 entries into the competition as well, which was absolutely excellent. We have tried our best, haven't we, Claire, to reply to every single entry that people have put in. But if we missed you, we're really sorry, because it was so many. It was a lot to keep up with this week.
I think we've done it. I think we have done it between us.
I think we got them all. So we're really excited about drawing the giveaway in this episode. But obviously, we want you to watch the entirety of the episode, so we're not doing it till the end.
Right. No, you're going to have to wait. The suspense is killing us too.
But we hope you don't mind, because we have an excellent topic for this week. Quite a, I was going to say controversial, but certainly one that does tend to initiate some debate.
It does.
And that is the dig versus no dig. And this has come up as a main topic for us because of when we asked for questions from viewers for our Q&A. And some of those questions were bigger than ones that we could cover in that episode. And I think we'd got this on our list anyway, hadn't we, from inception, that we thought we wanted to talk about this. But it was David who brought this up. David is Plot Up North, isn't he, on Instagram?
Yes. Yeah.
So David put this on. So this is a month ago that he put this question on, and he asked, do you think people are starting to question no dig? He said, it feels a bit like the COVID wave of gardeners started alongside the no dig movement. Now we're a few years on, it seems like quite a few are now starting to look to older or more traditional methods. More and more people seem to be, and we love this, didn't we, Claire? Dig curious.
I love that.
And he says, especially with the cost of compost, do you see the future as no dig, dig, and we also like this, dig but don't tell? So there was quite a lively discussion that went on underneath that question. Yeah. And, but we thought we wanted to address it more fully on a dedicated episode. So that's what we're going to do for today. So we thought we would start by, why would we dig? Why historically have we dug our gardens? So Claire, you've had a little research into this.
Not massive amounts of research, but I mean, I think first of all, we need to define what dig means in this context, really, don't we? And so dig would traditionally mean double digging, wouldn't it, really?
Yeah.
And double digging is a method that I've never done. I'll have to admit, I've never
No, same.
dug a garden. Have you? No,
No,
no.
no.
So double digging is you dig down you dig a trench, don't you? The depth of 2 spade lengths, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you then, so you dig down that far and you add organic matter into the bottom of that trench. And then as you dig the trench next to it, you fill up the first trench and you move along your plot like that, don't you? And so that is the definition of double digging. I don't know how many people actually double dig. That seems a huge amount of effort in comparison to just turning the top layer of soil over a little bit to loosen it, doesn't it?
Yeah,
So,
and I feel that's mostly what I observe around my allotment site. I
yeah,
haven't seen anyone really doing that extent of digging. It seems
no,
to be more loosening kind of the top layer. So you would
yeah,
probably say a spade. It's a
yeah,
spit, isn't it? A spit,
yeah,
spit deep.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, obviously, traditionally, digging is to loosen the topsoil or loosen the soil, add organic matter and remove weeds at that time. Because a lot of the weeds, especially pernicious weeds, 2 spade depths would get out majority of things like your docks and your dandelions, creeping buttercup, that kind of thing, and the thistles, nettles. So it is to do with that, and it's full on preparation. And it's inspired obviously from farming. So we talk about this from a garden setting as a vegetable growing setting. We double digging, the idea of that is mimicking the cultivation that you would do when ploughing, basically, which produces the rows and the furrows and things, and they fall over into the next one. And that is what we're mimicking in the garden with a spade. And obviously, for me personally, I feel that we don't compact the ground as much as that anyway when we're digging ourselves or walking around on it. Tractors are enormous pieces of machinery, and our tractors are about 6.5 tons on their own. That's without any implements on the back. So it is really important for them to be able to cultivate that ground, to loosen it up, to be able to then sow in it the next year. That said, even the agricultural industry is moving away from ploughing. They don't plough like they used to do. There's a lot of direct sowing, which is like a low pass cultivator that sows at the same time. So it removes the need for ploughing, and it just loosens that top layer of soil to cover the seeds that they're doing. But that's the origin of why we dig. It is to mimic traditional agricultural processes.
And so what is the extent to which you dig in the garden? Because I guess my assumption is that we're quite similar on this, and that we practice no dig, but we're not necessarily fanatical about no dig, and we would dig if necessary, because we're talking about sort of compacting. So when I first got this new plot, not my intention to dig the plot. It'd been a dug plot all the years that it was with the previous owner, which was like 6 years. And before that, it was just generally a mess. So it had 6 years of digging, and this was like, right, I'm transitioning it to no dig. But once the whole plot was clear, the temptation to just turn that soil, because there'll be no other moment where all those beds are empty, because now I've got perennial crops in them. Mark has a rotavator, and he'd done his side of the plot, and temptation got the best of me, and I'm like, come on then, let's just do it. I was very, very torn on whether this was a good idea or not. In the end, I felt that I wanted to go, and it's just a light rotavator. This is just a small little handheld rotavator. Some people may recall me trying to use it as another daft thing that I have done in the past. It was far too much of a piece of machinery for me. But yeah, it just did kind of, I would say, not even a spit of the top of the soil. And it was because we had moved so many of the slabs around the plot. So we'd been walking all over the beds. We'd been carrying heavy slabs, placing slabs in different configurations and things like that. And I thought a lot of compacting had been going on. So I did that light rotovate just to give me a fresh start. It's not my plan to do any rotavating from this point onwards, and I will kind of practice no dig. So that's sort of where I'm at with my plot. How about your garden?
Well, I've never practiced the concept of no dig, or never even heard of it before moving to vegetable growing and finding YouTube, obviously, because that's where I first saw about it. So from the home little back garden point of view, I would dig the borders over if they needed it. So if they got very weedy, that would be my way of digging out the weeds. It would be to dig the borders. I have one, I call it the little cottage garden border, that I never touch. I never feed it, never do anything with it. And I just sometimes put new plants in it, and that is completely untouched. But yeah, the main borders where grass gets in, I have dug them. Then obviously I moved to the vegetable garden, and there was many different methods of starting up that garden. And to me, every method involved needing to put compost on, which is why I set up the garden in the no dig method. I mean, some beds I put the cardboard down underneath them, other beds I didn't, just to see if it stopped the weeds any differently. Didn't. There was no difference, to be fair. So the cardboard step for me was easy to remove, because we got to a point where we was really struggling to get hold of that much cardboard. It was all right on the run up to Christmas. We were ordering presents for people and things. And so we had a lot of these big boxes, and then come January, no new boxes. So we were struggling to finish the plot off. And so I did do some without the cardboard underneath. I don't class myself as a no dig gardener, even though the majority of the gardening I do is probably classed as no dig. And
So
I guess
why
because
don't you?
because I don't want to feel tied to that method. So I don't want to be constrained by it. You know, if I want to get a spade out and dig some weeds out, which people have seen me do on my videos, then I will. You know, when we put in the pollinator highway, again, I didn't have any cardboard there, and that was really thick, full of docks in that area. I did dig that, didn't double dig it. I just dug it and turned it over because there was that much grass and docks in it. And obviously I pulled the docks out. So that's probably the only time on the garden itself that I've physically turned over a bed. It was 4.8 meters long by 1 point something meters. So it was a big space to do. And it was a huge amount of effort, but it felt rewarded. I felt like I needed to loosen that space up, especially for putting trees in the ground there. But no, I don't want to be constrained by it. If I decide that for some reason I want to go and dig a whole bed over, I don't want to feel that I've failed the garden because I've promised that I'm one way or the other.
Yeah, it's more about that kind of labeling than rather than your actual practice. And I mean, we alluded to that at the beginning with the kind of dig but don't tell, because there does become a little bit of a rigidity about what no dig means, which it doesn't necessarily have to do that. But I think if you say you're no dig, then that sets up certain assumptions. And then even if you sort of dig a hole to put a cabbage in, suddenly people are like, you dug, you know.
Yeah.
So that makes us cautious then of kind of using that. You alluded to the way in which, I don't know why I used the word alluded twice there. It's a nice word. The way in which you might start a no dig garden, which can be done so quickly and easily, which is to lay cardboard down on your undisturbed ground, whether that be soil or grass, and then you just pop your soil on top. You can have sides, or you don't have to have sides, and you can plant directly into it. And so you can make a garden almost instantly in that way. And that has a lot of appeal, especially to new gardeners when you're starting out, and especially with allotments when you're often faced, as my previous tenant of my plot was, with a big mess that needs clearing up. And so you can cover with like black plastic first to kind of kill things down a bit, and then do your no dig on top of that. But you were right about kind of pernicious weeds that do need digging out, because it doesn't matter how much cardboard you put down, a dock or brambles, they will still come through. I do think it's more manageable, because if you do the no dig and then your annuals aren't in the way, you can just see that singular dock and deal with that, where it's much harder to do that when it's in a whole jungle of other weeds as well that the no dig can get rid of quite easily.
They're also weaker. When these pernicious weeds come through, they are weaker, most definitely. But I mean, what I want to know though, Kerry, is if people are sitting here watching now, why should they no dig? What are the benefits of no dig? Why do we do it?
So we're going to go through these in a list of pros, but then we are going to go through and think about what some of the drawbacks to no dig are as well. So we're hoping to kind of give a very balanced view on the topic. Obviously, one of the great proponents of no dig, and probably where most of us understand no dig from, is Charles. Oh, Charlie Dowding, as Tony calls him, doesn't he? Charlie.
Yeah.
So, and you can see I have the book. So I'm quite a dedicated follower of the no dig method. And, I think what appealed to me about it from the very beginning is what you've already said, less effort. Now, we both want to be clear that having now practiced this for a few years, that less effort does not mean no effort.
No.
There's still quite a lot of effort that goes into no dig. But I never wanted to dig, and the primary reason was because of my back.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I thought getting allotment required the level of digging that I see other allotmenteers doing on my site. I don't think I would have even got an allotment, because I would never have thought that I could cope with that just physically.
Same with me.
So,
I mean, I would have a vegetable garden, but I don't think it would be as big as it is now if I felt that I'd got to practice.
You have yeah. So I think effort was the first one. Also, I've never really thought I liked weeding, so I would much prefer to do less of that. And obviously, if you don't disturb the soil, you're not bringing weed seeds to the surface, annual weed seeds that then germinate and you've got to deal with. We have both also, from experience, realized you do still get weeds. It's not a weed-free method, and obviously weeds blow in and onto the surface of the soil. And even if you're sort of digging out things like potatoes or carrots, or okra, they're disturbing the soil, and you'll bring weed seeds to the surface then. So it doesn't mean no weeding, but it can mean less weeding. I have actually felt that I've quite got into weeding.
Have you?
I don't. Yeah. Well, thank you for that tone of surprise, Claire. I think you meant to put at the end about, really? Have you seen your plot?
Have we seen you do any weeding recently? We have with your rake. We have.
Yeah, do my little rake with the chickweed. There you go. So just off the surface, not disturbing the soil there. But yeah, I don't dislike weeding in kind of the way I thought, but maybe it's because it doesn't feel overwhelming.
Yeah.
Because it's not like all over the place, and those really kind of deep perennial weeds that I had on the old plot as well. And also with the raised beds, those make it easier, especially if you raise them quite high. So for me, for my back, but other people who might have disabilities, then you've got that ease with no dig in that way as well.
With, like you saying that you wouldn't have taken on an allotment if you felt that you had to dig, there's a lot of gardeners out there, as you've just stated, that are disabled, that actually the no dig movement has enabled them to continue gardening even through a diagnosis and potentially a progressive decline in their physical capabilities. They can still go out and garden. And I think that's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And for that alone, no dig as a concept should be greatly applauded.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah. So some of the other benefits of no dig are environmental.
Yeah.
So one of the things that you do when you dig the soil is you release the carbon that has been captured in that soil, creating emissions. Now, of course, this is on a very small scale in comparison to other things that create emissions, or, large scale agriculture. But nevertheless, I think we all feel that we want to be doing our little bit. And I would prefer to think that the space that I am stewarding on the plot is a place where I am capturing carbon rather than releasing it into the atmosphere. So that's one of the big things. But one I think that most probably gets talked about is the structure of the soil and not disturbing the life that already exists in the soil. So when you dig, all those little structures that the earthworms have created, all the relationships that are happening between the bacteria and the microbes and the critters and the mycorrhizal fungi, all those things that are set up in the soil that we can barely even see, mostly cannot see at all, but are benefiting the health of our soil. If we go in with a spade or a fork, we're just like messing all of that up and destroying those structures. So if we want to keep that web of life intact, then to put our goodness, our compost, our mulch on the top rather than digging it into the soil is a better way of doing that. And then the idea, of course, is that that life comes to the surface because it's got that fresh mulch on the top and then brings it down into the soil. So it does the hard work for you.
But when is there a time when maybe no dig isn't suitable? Because if you've just taken on a completely barren landscape plot, imagine you're in a very dry environment as well, and your ground is baked hard. It is devoid of any, if you dig down, you can't see a single earthworm in that ground. And actually, is there an idea that potentially you have to break up that compaction, add the manure in or any organic matter in a more traditional way to set the garden up to then move forward to be no dig? Because if there's no life in the soil to start with, nothing is going to come to the surface and bring that organic matter deeper into the structure to give an environment that will entice the worms and other things into it anyway. So you have to have an environment to start with already to begin no dig off the bat, don't you? If you don't have that, then I do believe there is an argument to dig first because it's quicker. You could practice no dig, but it's going to take you a few years to entice them in to get it to do the work for you, and you're going to make your job and your reward from the crops that you grow is going to be so much smaller and so much harder.
And delayed,
yeah.
And
you don't want to give
enthusiasm.
up. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it can be demotivating if you don't get much back. I think it's a difficult one. It's personal choice, really, isn't it? Because I think for some people, they would weigh up those environmental factors, and that would be more of a drive than getting a better yield from the space. Because there is, I think, for most of us, a balance between the space being for us and providing for us and what we are doing in terms of stewarding that space and making that a good space for biodiversity in the environment.
Yeah.
The reason, part of, this tension I felt when I was rotivating the new plot was, did I want to go in and chop up any poor worms? Now, this was what I was doing it January time, I think. Yeah. So a lot of the life was deep in the soil anyway. It wouldn't be on the surface where it's really cold. So that's what I was telling myself anyway and hoping. And indeed, when we did rotivate it, we didn't see earthworms. And that was part of my well, perhaps this was a good thing to do because there's clearly not the life there that I wanted. But then on the flip side, most of that life we can't see. So even if you go digging around and thinking there's no life in here, you don't know that, do you?
No.
So much of it is microscopic. But when I bought compost in, and then I did just put that on the top. I didn't dig it in. So it had been rotivated and then the compost went on the top. So in some ways, and again, it was only a thin layer that was rotivated. It was like, is that like a medium kind of meet in the middle sort of thing?
Yeah.
So you're doing a little bit of both and hoping that you get the benefits of each and not being too destructive in the process.
Definitely. I mean, it's one of the reasons another reason why I went for the raised beds, because I knew that if I put manure in the raised beds, at the base of the raised beds, and then obviously compost on top, that I'm enticing the wildlife in, the worms, the microscopic organisms, because obviously for me, they had that rich organic matter to feed them. So it would entice them in because, hey, there's a buffet for you here and it is an a la carte. So that was another reason, was to give me a good quality soil. And I guess for me, I feel like I must have achieved that. And it's whether I achieve that ongoing, because obviously they were well fed. I've had 2 seasons on this plot and the crops have, I hate it because it sounds like I'm bragging again, but the crops have done really well. So the method I've chosen has clearly worked thus far. It's how I continue that moving forward. Am I adding enough into the soil to continue to feed them, or am I starting to slowly deplete it? Which is why this season I am adamant that I'm not buying in as much compost. I'm trying to put more manure on the soil this year, and some of the wood chip, worn down wood chip paths that have composted into the beds this year, and trying to find cheaper ways of creating this environment.
Well, I'm glad you raised that, Claire, because that was next on my list.
Such a segue.
I know.
So smooth.
about mulching, because we'll come to this with the cons, which is about the cost of compost, but there's lots of ways to add goodness on top of your beds and have that life come to the surface to draw it down. And so I just this weekend, spoiler for my upcoming video, have mulched my dahlia beds, and I have used leaves. Because I have a lot of ginkgo leaves in my garden, as lots of people pointed out, and we're a bit scared for my health and safety with slippery paths full of leaves. But I have swept them up now, and they're on the dahlia beds. So leaves, I put on the straw and hay from the rabbit bedding that I get from my friend, and grass cuttings. I had the last of the grass cuttings. I think the church has probably finished their grass cutting for the year now, so I had the last of those on. I've just layered those up onto the beds. They're there to protect the dahlia tubers over the winter, but they're also there to feed the bed and hopefully sort of compost down. And this is similar to the Ruth Stout method, where in the US she used I think it was a foot of hay all over her garden. Hay or straw, you probably know the differences between those, Claire. They're the same thing in my head.
They're not, Kerry. Do I need to educate you? Hay, haylage and silage comes from grass. Straw comes from barley, oat, wheat.
Oh, okay. I'll try and remember that. Every day's a school day. I think when you have the rabbit bedding, it's probably a mix of both, to be honest. So, but yeah, I'm not sure which she used, hay or straw, but she would do a foot's worth on the beds, and that would be the mulch over everything, and she would sort of part it to sew into it and things. And if nobody's read any of Ruth Stout's books, they're absolutely hilarious. She is such a character, or was such a character. She has such a way of talking about this method, and when people write to her and say, what about slugs? And the way in which she responds back. But I think that's one of the reasons people are a bit cautious of using hay and straw and things in the UK, because of slugs, and it's creating a kind of slug habitat. But according to her, it should be fine. Chop and drop was the other thing to use, and this is something that you practice quite a lot, isn't it, Claire?
Well, this year, Kerry. I mean, this is the first time I'm really doing it. You don't oversell it, will you? I have some.
If you do it once and I see it in your video, that's it.
That's
what Claire does.
A lifelong advocate of the chop and drop. I am trying it this year. Yes. I mean, I did try it last year, but I didn't sow them early enough. So the early frosts that we had, or sustained early frosts last year, did kill off things before they even got to that point. But I'm still unsure on it. You know, the chop and drop, great. I like the idea of it, but the confidence to know whether I've actually killed these things off is still in the back of my mind. It's something that I see it and I feel that I have an urge to then dig it. I feel, because that would be what I would do, as I did with that pollinator highway. I dug the grass over so that soil was on the top. So I need to try and get my head around the fact that you don't need to do that. I need to just trim them off, chop them off, and let it stay there, and then put some soil on top. But for me, then I don't know that I'm going to do it again, Kerry.
Oh, why? What's been your drawback?
Because it would be to chop that down and then put compost on top, because that is the effective, obviously, manure. Whereas if I have access to manure, the actual stuff. Yeah. So that's what I would prefer to put on top, because then I have a cost to fill those beds up with compost afterwards. Whereas I wouldn't if I'd have put the manure on them. So there is a little bit of something in my mind.
Why do you feel the need to put the compost on top if the mulch is breaking down over the winter? This is it. No, I'm being facetious here. I was trying to get you to say that because that's how I feel as well. And I try really hard not to feel it. It's the same with the green manure. Are you feeling it with the green manure? It just looks
That's what
messy.
I mean.
It looks like weeds. And you feel like you want a nice blank canvas, a nice, black gold bed, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing that feels so lovely.
I'm liking the look of the crops now, but I know once I've chopped them down, I won't want to leave them on the bed. My instinct, everything, every fibre of me will want to remove them or turn them in. So I am going to
Yeah.
have to cover them so that, like you say, I have the black gold on the
Okay.
top.
See, I'm trying to just switch my mindset and to think, not only is it good for the bed, for feeding the bed, protecting the surface of the bed, but also it's habitat for creatures and things as well. So I'm just trying to reframe it. But I think it's really difficult as well when you are gardening in a public space like an allotment, because you feel the judgment of others. And I'm generally not fussed what people think of me. I'm past that. But there is this sense, especially, you hear rumblings and things about, their plot looks a mess or whatever and things. You feel the need to kind of justify. It's like, no, this is no dig. And I think that can be difficult for people on allotment sites who are trying to practice no dig, because a lot of the committees on allotment sites are not very open to it, because there is a traditional kind of way of doing things. That's not across the board. There are lots more, I think, forward-thinking kind of allotments, or not even forward-thinking, but accommodating of the different ways that people would like to grow. And I think our committee is going that way too.
Traditionally, the cardboard is seen to be something that goes at the bottom, isn't it? It's not normally left on show, is it? Whereas some people are using it as the mulch itself and just leaving it on the top, aren't they? So you have got that mess. Whereas actually, the traditional way that cardboard is used would be first and then the compost on top. I do also understand that the worms absolutely love the cardboard, don't they? And so, if you're not using manure in the way that I am, cardboard is your enticer for the worms to come into your ground.
A gardener who's a really big inspiration for me is Alice Fowler. And I think she's fantastic. And she doesn't put a lot of content out now, but so if you seek out some of her older videos, and when she's on her old allotment, and she'd have the cardboard down and she'd be dumping leaves on top of it, and it looked like just really messy and things, but it was a thriving environment. And so I find her a real inspiration to think, like, yes, it might look messy, but that's okay. It's okay to have a space that looks messy. Now, I know we come at this from different angles, and yours is your home garden. Although saying that, I mean, these dahlia beds that I've just done look pretty messy, and I am going to put cardboard on top of those as well, because I just want to keep the rain off too much over the winter. But obviously that will come off in the summer. And then I will have 2 beds of glorious, let's hope, big dahlias, which will look absolutely fabulous.
Yes. That I also am going to be doing my dahlia beds in my next video. So we will see how very differently we approach this.
Okay. There was one other method that's kind of no dig adjacent, which is the hugelkultur. I think I said that correctly. Hugelkultur.
I think you have.
And we'll put it on the screen. And this is the idea of making beds by using branches and logs and leaves and decaying matter from your garden. And you kind of have a heap or a kind of mound of that. And then you put some fresh compost on top, and you plant into the compost, and all that material inside rots down and feeds the plants. I'll tell you what, Claire. I've always been a bit suspect about this method, and I actually have done it in a few. In fact, in those dahlia beds when I first made them, I had loads of twigs and branches and things in the bottom of those, and then put the compost on top. Now, I have complained at length that those beds don't perform the way that I think they should be performing, and I was wondering if that was the reason, because we know that you don't dig in wood chip into a bed because it pulls nitrogen from the soil while it's decaying. The microbes that decay the wood chip source the nitrogen out of the soil in order to do that work. I believe that's the correct science.
Yes.
So I had a bit of because this has always been in the back of my mind, and it's only been prompted by today to have a little Google and find out if doing a hugelkultur can do that. But what that says is that actually the things growing in the soil on the top, they've got plenty of nitrogen and nutrients in that top bit of compost. And because the wood is buried deeper, then that's doing that thing deep down on the deep level, and then it will release it. So the the roots can do it. Do you like all the actions that I've put in
I
there,
love
Claire?
the gesticulations.
I was talking to Claire as I was driving the other day, hands-free. And I said to her...
She was literally hands-free.
I was, because even though Claire could not see me at all, I was gesticulating all over the place as I was driving. I was still driving safely. So have you tried hugelkultur?
I have.
Claire?
I have one bed that's hugelkultur, and it's my strawberry bed in the fruit cage.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to really raise that because obviously picking the strawberries, and I well, you know, it looked pretty. I wanted it to be a risen feature in the middle of the fruit cage. So yeah, I did practice hugelkultur in there. So there's some really substantial size logs in there, which I think will probably not decay anytime soon. And things that we've experienced, if you've left a log around the farm for any length of time, unless you physically push it and move it, it can look like a log still. But actually, if you start to move it, then it will crumble to pieces. So I think that the structure will remain in there for a long, long time. But yeah, I've got some of the cut down trees in the bottom of there. There was plenty of twigs. Then there's a huge layer of manure. But there is a big layer of compost on top as well. So there's probably a good 6, 8, maybe more inches. And there's even more now because I've redone it since then because it did drop. So I have redone it this year. Yeah, it did drop. But I mean, it would have done anyway because it had so much manure in it. I don't know whether it's necessarily the twigs and things that are in there or the level of manure that was there. So I have done it and I would do it again, definitely. In fact, I will do it again because I do have some beds to put out somewhere at some point that are deeper beds. So I do intend to practice that process again if Duncan's left the logs around still because I don't know where they've all gone. But I like the idea of it. And if you are making a garden that is predominantly made from, you know, the really high beds, as again, going back to the people that are maybe doing it for mobility reasons, then it's got to make a huge difference because, you know, I've only got strawberries in there. The reason I decided to do it this way was because strawberries don't have deep root system. They don't need to have top quality compost, the depth of 3 foot or however tall the bed is. They don't need it. So it is a waste of the resources. You know, you think how much compost there could be going out onto the other beds that the roots of plants that are being grown in that season are going to need. So that's the reason that I did it, definitely. I wouldn't do it on a shallow bed.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, if my beds were a bit too shallow on the dahlia beds. Yeah. But I've added a lot of compost to those beds. In fact, they're rather mounded now. And now that the dahlias are in there as well. So, that stuff needs to do some breaking down. So then the level drops a little bit. Would you say, it's hard to say if you've got a better yield from no-dig beds if you've not done a proper experiment, has it? You can kind of hope that it's doing better for the plants. But of course, Charlie Dowding does that for us, and he has had 2 beds that have been experiment beds, a dig and a no dig one, and I don't know whether it's almost coming up to probably a decade now that he's had those 2 beds going. In this book, he said that he gets consistently 5 to 10% more yield on the no dig strip. That's not vast. So like if you enjoy digging, like my cousin Becky, she loves to dig, and my mum to some extent, they're diggers. And that's part of her enjoyment of gardening. Would not be for me. It is for her. So 5 to 10%, I mean, it's especially as hobby gardeners, it's neither here nor there. If you're doing this on a large scale or a market garden, 5 to 10% is a good margin of profit. But so it's not vast. But I think for me, just factoring in the less effort part is what makes it attractive.
Is it? See, this is one of my big things on my notes. Is it really less effort? Is it?
Than digging. Them dragging, well, hang on a second, Claire. I'll just go get my telehandler with already rotted down manure and just tip it onto the bed and spread it out, and I'm done.
Well, I was thinking about
it. Than digging.
Generally speaking, obviously, I'm if I was digging, Duncan could come in with a mini digger. We have one, so he could dig the bed for me if I really wanted him to. But
that would be
we'll
very minimal effort for you then.
Exactly. But I'm not going to talk about using machinery to do this. But the idea that no dig is no effort to me is a fallacy, and it would be disingenuous to sit here and say that there is no effort. It is much easier, because I've been there. I've set up an entire garden in the no-dig method. And there was a lot of work involved, even with the use of a telehandler to bring those bags of compost closer to me. There's a lot of shoveling. There's a lot of compost to move, and organic matter if you're doing that. There's, to me, a lot of work, and taking the staples out of the cardboard. I absolutely hate doing that.
You know
and all
what?
of the
I was
plastic
just going to say,
I hate it.
It's the worst part. And that is the most, for me, that has been the most effort of doing, shoveling compost, because I've had deliveries of big piles of compost and I've had to shovel it across. But if I'd been digging, I would have had to do the same thing, because I'd just be shoveling it to then dig in. So that's the additional effort from just putting on top to the digging in.
I think there's a lot of people, though, that don't think that they have to put any compost on. Digging traditionally, as we've already said, double digging is adding that organic matter. But there's a lot of people that would just dig to loosen the soil and then sprinkle some blood, fish and bone. They're not actually physically going to put another layer of compost. They just want to fluff up the layer of compost that's already there. Because if you do dig the bed, it does make the bed look more full, as it hasn't compacted with the rain and whatever over the season. So I still think there's a huge amount of effort, especially if you're setting up raised beds, because I know you brought compost into your garden or onto your allotment, but you didn't put the amount of compost in that I put into mine. I think I've gone through 15 bulk bags of compost and manure on top. So let's not even think about the cost. We'll come to that later. But that was a heck of a lot of wheelbarrows of compost that I've moved around the plot. So yes, do it by all means, but you are still going to have to undertake a certain amount of effort
for sure.
in
and
the process.
Of course, any gardening is effort. Otherwise, we would just let it go wild and sit inside and look out at it. But I would still venture to say, for me, doing all of that work is still less back-breaking, and I mean literally would break my back, than doing the digging. But to go back to the cardboard, I completely agree. The worst bit, and obviously you don't have to use cardboard, and we'll come to that again too, but trying to take off the tape and the staples, that for me is the worst bit of doing no-dig, without doubt. And I have spent so long doing it, broken so many nails doing it. The top tip, of course, is though, let the cardboard sit out in the rain, and then it's so much easier.
It is.
So much easier. Okay. There's a couple of other just things on the pro side, and then we'll get to some of these concerns that we've been raising. So putting a mulch on top, a dark mulch like compost, will warm the bed, so you can theoretically plant in a little bit earlier in the season because it will be warmer.
Yeah.
And no-dig tends to go hand in hand with things like polyculture and succession sowing, which reduces the need for crop rotation. And we already mentioned that it can be really quick to start a garden by using no-dig. So you can go from a blank slate to a garden in not very long at all. Okay. Right. Cons. You just mentioned it, Claire. The compost required. Cost of compost. And if you're making raised beds, the wood for the raised beds as well. Now, of course, again, Charles, he talks about his experiment beds as having the exact same amount of compost added. So one dug in, one laid on the top. So his argument is that there is no additional cost of compost. You would use the same amount either way. As you have just said, some people don't put compost on anyway and would just loosen the surface of the soil. And the other thing with no dig is there is a greater investment at the start.
Huge.
So I think it's recommended to have about 15 to 20 centimeters of compost on top for the first year. And then you can reduce that to half, or about 7 centimeters of compost year on year afterwards. Would you say you stick to that? Or has that been I think some of your beds you went deeper, but then you were using the manure as well.
Yeah, I mean, as I've said, my raised beds are only 6 inches tall. So
okay.
So it can't, that is 15
That
centimetres,
is,
isn't it?
yeah.
So I'm not going any bigger than that.
Okay.
You can see both our cogs turning then. You're
Well,
thinking, let's just convert that to metric.
But you
so
also have
15
your carrot
centimetres.
beds and things.
Oh yeah, they are
They're
much
higher.
deeper. They are much deeper. And so generally across the normal growing beds, I have stuck to that. How much I put on each year generally, obviously depends on how much the beds have dropped, because as you've just said, you can't keep over mounding them, can you? Because even if the bed is full, once you start digging little holes to plant things, you even end up with more soil then, don't you? So yeah, some beds, I'm guessing it depends on the crops that have been in them. Some beds I do find drop more in the year than others have and require more to fill them up. But generally speaking, they're all getting a couple, sometimes 3, but generally 2 big barrows of manure or compost added onto each bed each year. So when you've got 40 odd beds.
Yeah, it adds up. Is that how you judge it? That you want it at a certain level in the bed?
Yeah.
And
I don't want it to be overspilling. I don't want it right to the top, because I want to be able to contain it a little bit. But yeah, that is exactly how it's done for me. It's just topping the beds back up to where they were when I started.
I know Hugh Richards has thought a bit differently about this, because he's sort of broken away from a kind of no dig dogma, I think, as he sees it, to a more kind of idea of minimal disturbance gardening. And I think he's been talking about that we overuse compost, and that actually you only need to sprinkle, like especially homemade compost, which is full of life. You only really need to be using that quite like
sparingly.
Sparingly, that's the word I was looking for.
It's a good word.
Thank you. It is a good word. We had some good words this episode. Just use it quite sparingly on the beds to boost fertility in the soil that exists. And I remember him talking before about when we do no dig, and especially in raised beds, we're only ever really planting in the compost that we've put there. The roots might access what's down, like with your strawberries. They're never getting to the hugel culture that's been or the humus that is being created by that at the bottom. And he's like, why aren't we planting in the actual soil? And obviously it's really good to have loose compost to put seedlings in if you're direct sowing. But yeah, I've kind of thought more about this, and that's, I only put a thin layer of compost on last year, and part of that was cost. I couldn't afford to put more on there. But also I had this in my back of my mind. It's just like, I also want to be growing in the actual soil.
And I still am. I don't do that much direct sowing. We mentioned that last week. But I find that when I'm digging a hole to plant something that's been potted up into sort of a 9-10 centimetre pot, I need to dig below the 6 inches to get those roots in those pots in the ground. So I do find that I do go through into, I call it the clay pan, but it's not terribly clay. Some beds have got more clay in them than others. So I do find that their roots are definitely in the main body of the beds that are underneath there now. That they're raised beds at the end of the day, so I want them to be slightly raised out of my water table, which means there's no point in me letting them get to the level of the ground around them, because that's not helping anything that stays in there at all.
And I think that is sort of the larger context for this, isn't it? Is about what works for you in your circumstances, in your context, because you're absolutely right. Like on my old plot, I couldn't direct sow at all. You had to rise up above it because of the water table wasn't just high, it was above the soil. It was flooded most of the time. So I guess we've already covered mulch as well as an alternative to the compost. So that is one way of cutting down the compost once you've established your kind of no-dig beds. But I don't think there's any denying it that there is an outlay that you have to do when you do no-dig.
Yeah. I am adamant that I want to find a way to mass produce more compost materials. I need to cut down the cost, because, we're talking about cost, and I've just said I put in 15 bulk bags. Those bulk bags, until I found a local supplier that gave good quality compost, ranged from anywhere between £70 to £112 per compost bulk bag. Now, the expensive bulk bags, I will say, were 1,200 litres, so they were jumbo
bigger
bulk
than,
bags.
yeah.
They were very big. And it was carriage cost with those that put the price up with a national delivery company. At the moment, if I buy a bulk bag, they say that they're 700 litres. I mean, I don't know because I've never physically tried to measure them. And they're about £52 a bag now. But that's really good stuff.
Yeah.
So that has brought the cost down. And I probably will still have to have a couple of bags of that compost because I'm going to run out of my manure and then I don't want to put anything that's any fresher on top. So then when I get to that stage, I will have to put something that's already pre-bought in and ready to plant straight into. But yeah, there's very few of us that have the ability to be able to have the space to grow enough compost to furnish our beds with. Even Charles Dowding, he buys a lot of compost in and he makes a lot of compost as well. But he admits that he does buy compost in and he gets manure dropped off to make more compost. He physically cannot make enough compost to cover his no-dig beds.
Yeah, and he has a lot of grass clippings and stuff as well from around his beds and things like that. Okay. I think we've covered some of the other sort of cons, like if there's no life or that we can see in the beds that might be beneficial to dig.
Yeah.
We talked about cardboard, but it's it's the sourcing of it. As you said, it can be quite difficult to get enough. It's also
Bike
being
shops.
confident. Yeah. And people who have furniture delivered.
Yes.
Like summer furniture and things.
And I think we should point out as well, sorry, Kerry, for butting in, but I think we should point out as well that you're only using brown cardboard that's got just ink on it.
Claire.
I'm so sorry, Kerry.
I was just about to say it. But it's like, because we're like this. You know,
we are. We're
always thinking the same thing. Well, I was going to term it as being confident using cardboard because there are a lot of scare stories around using cardboard. And, again, it's kind of how you feel about it. A quick kind of Google and things, and you will find that there are certain types of cardboard that have chemicals in them, that there's glue used to stick them together, that some of the inks might not be great, or fire retardant on cardboard. But it tends to be that's the kind of cardboard that's shiny, coloured.
Cereal boxes.
It's not the kind of cardboard that we're talking about for this, which is, as you were saying, Claire, like the plain bog standard brown. And generally on those, like if you get the tape off, I think the glue that's left is kind of minimal, and usually it is like a plant-based glue anyway.
Yeah.
But these are not things you can necessarily check. It's very hard to check these things. So I know Amazon have said I'm sure it's on their website and stuff, that their cardboard is good to use. There's nothing on that cardboard that you should be afraid of using. So, I just had in my notes here, but the worst part is the removing of the tape and the staples. As long as you can bear doing that, then cardboard is a great thing to use. And like you said, Claire, you don't need to use it every year. If the weeds have got out of control and it helps to put a layer of cardboard down, then by all means. And you don't even have to put it down in the first year. Like you said, if your compost layer is thick enough, it will smother those weeds and you can get started. I guess one of the other things about whether people want raised beds or not, but as we've covered, raised beds aren't necessary. There's plenty of people like Charles Dowding who do the rows with the wood chip in between, and that works perfectly well. Considering all that we've said then, are you still happy with your decision to predominantly be no dig in the garden?
Definitely. Definitely. Gardening takes a long time anyway. I mean, I don't have the full-time job away from home in the way that you do. I can nip out to my garden several times a day if I want to. But if I had to, same with the grass paths or not having them, if I had to spend so much time digging beds each year, I would very quickly lose motivation. So no, I am very happy. But I also don't feel guilty when I do drag out a spade or a fork.
Well, would you prefer to be called a minimal disturbance gardener? It doesn't roll off the tongue in the same way.
No, but that's how I would label myself. Mm-hmm. That's because I don't want to be, I can't be evangelical about something, and I want to be completely transparent as well. I'm not going to state that I'm a no-dig gardener if I'm not, and yes, 99.9% of my gardening has been done that way. But I'm not afraid or I won't feel shameful to get the spade out and that I've gone
When you
against
feel
something.
it's
If I
necessary.
feel it's
Yeah.
necessary, then I will. And I only feel it's necessary if it really is, because like we've already described or explained, I don't want to dig. I don't want the effort involved in it. I would rather pay the cost to buy the compost to add on top instead.
You should take a leaf out of Robin's book as well and hire someone to put it onto
Yes.
the beds.
That would be good,
I
wouldn't
liked Robin's, that was her work, smarter, not harder.
But I actually do enjoy doing it. But there's something that I would like to say, though, that in spite of all of this and how we know that it's better for the environment, better for the soil health, and better for the organisms that live within the soil, I feel like we can't overlook pesticides in there as well. To me, there is absolutely no point practicing no dig and then still using weed killers and things like that. So, they have the ability to have an even greater impact on the soil health and the life within the soil as well.
Yeah. And I think I would, although, I am a proponent of no dig, I guess. And I've got this lovely book, The Climate Change Resilient Vegetable Garden, by Kim Stoddard. And the way she talks about no dig in here as being a way of contributing to mitigating climate change is something that speaks to me. And I guess I would have to term myself a minimal disturbance gardener because I do use the broad fork, and I'm really like the broad fork as a way of like getting the benefit of no dig in terms of helping with aeration and water retention and water drainage, perversely, but without doing massive disturbing of the soil structure. I had seen Hugh Richards use a broad fork, and he just did it once in a video, and it was really quick. I'm surprised he didn't make more of doing this, but maybe that was at a point where he was afraid of kind of this no dig backlash. And when I saw it, I was so taken with that as an idea because this is on the old plot, working with this really compacted clay soil, and I needed to do something about it. And I was really, lucky to get this broad fork. I reached out to the company because you can't buy them in the UK. They're just really not something that exists over here. And I reached out and said I would kind of do a review of one. And I have not looked back. I love that thing. There is one you now get for sale in the UK, but it's very, very, very expensive. And they are an expensive tool, but I use it pretty much when I clear a bed. If there aren't perennials kind of growing in it, I just use that. And all it does is kind of go into the soil, lift, and then come out again. And it just does that kind of little bit of allowing the air and the moisture to get through. And I think that's made a huge difference to my beds. Those dahlia beds that I said haven't worked very well in the past, since I've done a couple of years broad forking them, I think they're performing way better. Way better.
Well, if you are compacted and you have clay underneath that is not letting them drain, then clearly, these microorganisms, they're not going to thrive themselves if they're being flooded all of the time. So it is a necessity for any of us that have that kind of ground.
I meant to mention my front garden, actually, because of all my spaces, that has been the most no-dig space because I try when I cleared it, it had black plastic on with wood chip over the top that weeds had grown on and through. It was a mess. This is when I first got the house. So I pulled all that back and exposed just a flat pan of soil, very compacted. But I didn't dig or rotivate before I had a broad fork. And I covered it all with compost. I got cardboard, got a delivery of compost that went on top, and then just started planting in it. And another spoiler for my episode this week, I'm working in the front garden and I was digging out some things, and the soil is amazing, Claire. It is. I was just so thrilled. So many earthworms in there, and literally have done nothing with that for years. And it mulches itself as well. I've sometimes put some grass clippings on. I've never put any more compost on it. Things just die back, go back into the soil. And I was like, and I think I've said this before, that front garden space, that's like my triumph of gardening. It's like, if only I could maintain that and do that on all my gardening spaces. But for some reason, it just kind of works in that little space, probably because it's a little space and it's manageable. But yeah, I had some proper black gold there, Claire.
Yeah, lovely.
So I think we want to kind of round this up by sort of saying that, generally speaking, any kind of growing, any kind of stewarding of a space is great. And that's great for human health, planetary health. You grow how you want to grow. If you are growing, that's awesome. But also, you know, we're not saying that there is a right way or a wrong way of doing it, but there's perhaps a way of thinking about the health of the soil a little bit more, especially as we start thinking more about how we garden in the climate crisis. So we hope that people have perhaps learnt some things or could take away some of the things that we said today. But we expect a lively chat, I think, in the live chat and the comments for this week's episode. Okay. Well, if everybody sat through all of that with bated breath, waiting for this giveaway that we promised to announce at the sort of beginning of the episode, then I think we're ready, aren't we, Claire? So do you want to remind everybody what it is that we're giving away?
Oh, it's really exciting, Kerry. We are giving away a Sow Chatty mug, a heated mug coaster, and I need to point out that it's not the one that you saw me using last week. It is a brand new inner box heated mug coaster, and then it has the UK plug on it, a loofah soap, an actual loofah, some loofah seeds, and the seed advent calendar. And I'm so excited. And we've had how many entries, Kerry?
165 entries. So
wow,
we are now ready with our generator to find a winner.
I have it on the iPad here. So all of your names are entered into the iPad, and all I have to do now, let's see if this stays on the screen.
Extra names for the extra
entries. Including your extra entries for the community posts. Sorry. And here we go. I hit the randomizer button.
This is exciting.
Who's it gonna be?
Joanne!
There you go. There you go, Joanne Dawson. You are the winner of our first giveaway. Congratulations. So exciting. So if you get in touch with us, Joanne, I will get your address from you and we'll get these posted off to you, and hopefully you'll receive them before the 1st of December. That was brilliant.
Wow, that first giveaway. I know.
It worked far easier than I expected it to. Let me just say, behind the scenes.
Yeah, I was going to say.
There's been a lot of toing and froing behind the scenes, and we could not have done this without Duncan, who was collating the information and found a really good randomizer for us. So absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
And that was our UK only giveaway, but do stay tuned for future episodes because we do have future giveaways lined up that are more international than this one. So that's exciting too.
It is. It is. I can't wait for that one. I think that's going to be a really exciting giveaway for all of our viewers.
So that's our teaser for next week to tune in for our next giveaway. Next week's episode will be our Christmas gift guide. So that's our topic for next week. So we're putting up some polls and questions on the community page to see what it is that you'll be asking Santa for this year. But thank you for joining us this week.
Yes, thank you. We've had a really good episode. I hope that you've got lots of information, and we will look forward to seeing you next week. Take care. Bye.